Be strong.
Alrighty, we're a very happy Thursday. It is February the 16th of 2023. Welcome to another episode of the Throw In with Justin right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. I want to go ahead and apologize to everyone for a brief later on in the day program. And a few things occurred. So I kind of wish everyone a safe day as the storm that has kind of transpired over the last several hours moves on from us. Woke up this morning. The fiance had to work at 6, and so didn't quite get back in time to get set up. A couple other things kind of pushed away, still being tired and kind of offset. Was going to push it back to 8, then I got pushed back to 10, and now it's at noon. So we're going to have a 2-hour episode leading you up until 2 p.m. on a Thursday. But you know what? That is a-okay. I also had a little bit of weather difficulties. Whenever we have these terrible storms or when it gets really cold outside, I get reflected, or I get, it reflects the studio and the internet power. StreamYard is recorded from the web browser. That's what's so great about it. But at the same time, that's the downfall. You need to have decent internet. When you don't have decent internet, and boy, I tell you, there are some complications. So we got everything squared away, kind of put together today's show. And I'm kind of figuring out, all right, what am I going to really do and talk to you guys about here on a Thursday afternoon, morning, whatever the case may be. I don't really have anything set up in a view. So we're going to kind of take this show step by step. And I was taking a notes. I've been taking notes the last couple of days. I really, just take a second to step away from wrestling, even though AEW Dynamite was on last night. Jay Briscoe is officially part of the AEW roster. Not Jay Briscoe. I'm sorry, Mark Briscoe. Oh my. And this already getting started. And so, I mean, there was definitely, it was a big night in Dynamite, yet again, as they now look forward to, here in a couple weeks, Revolution. But, when I was going to take a break from wrestling, because I talked a lot about it on Tuesday, I talked a lot about it on Wednesday, and I kind of want to start transitioning, a little bit more into the off season of the NFL. And I also really want to transition into the Major League Baseball as the Reds, and pitchers and catchers reporting. We talk about the Cactus League out there in Arizona. We, do have to mention the Grapefruit League going down in Florida as well. So I think today we're going to kind of focus more on a lot of the quarterback scenario. And the reason why I say that is that, I actually came down, took the other day and actually thought through, hey, what's my rankings? Around this time, season's over with. What's my quarterback rankings for 2022? And I had that list in front of me. I'll probably sit here and share it with you. There are a few quarterbacks that have not made the list. And then most of the, there are quarterbacks that have made the list. But I want to go ahead and talk about that. And then I want to go ahead and talk about this NCAA tournament bracket that, we currently sit, and we have Xavier right now ranked number 4 in the Midwest after a huge loss against Marquette last night. We'll talk a little bit about that later on today. And then we also have Kentucky, who's the first four out in the bubble. And man, I tell you, we got to figure that out because we can't allow, Kentucky impressive victory back last night in a battle, but we can't allow, um, we simply just cannot allow any mistakes. Kentucky, man, picks up a victory last night over Mississippi State Bulldogs, 71-68. Definitely lived up to the hype, and they're looking forward to continuing their success this weekend as they get ready to play Tennessee on Saturday. So we'll talk around the league, around the local sports news here. I'll give you we're going to take a look at the mock draft order, and then in the NFL, because I tell you this, all right, you guys, we have the draft is going to be here in just a few months. All right, you got to finish of February, and then you got March, April, and the draft is here, you guys. And the quarterback situation I said earlier in January wasn't the greatest. All right, there's about the top 10 quarterbacks. Let me give you the showcase for that. You got Bryce Young from Alabama, C.J. Stroud for Ohio State. You got Will Levis from Kentucky, Anthony Richardson, Hendon Hooker, Tanner McKee, Aiden O'Connell, Jaron Hall, Cameron Ward, and Stetson Bennett. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. There's maybe about 4, maybe 5 names at the top of that list that I could give you. But otherwise, the quarterback class for this year's draft in the NFL is not a whole lot to talk about, which means when you take a look at right now the NFL draft and you take a look at teams who could possibly, need a quarterback, right? And one of the biggest questions coming out of this this draft is with Chicago getting that number 1 draft pick, it'd be a perfect opportunity, and it'd be a big decision that they'd have to make. But do they stick with Justin Fields, or do they decide to move on and try to draft one of these younger quarterbacks coming out of college? I'm a Bryce Young fan. I like his numbers. C.J. Stroud, Will Levis are my top 3 guys. And so I'm going to give you the mock drafts where people think, and I'm going to also want to share with you if I believe that's where they should be. But you look at this list, you look at the draft from 1 to 32, and you got to remember a couple teams don't get the draft pick because they canceled it. And you see that happening up in the early rounds with Denver and Los Angeles, where Seattle and Detroit slip in. But then you look at the list, is like, all right, so Chicago has a decision to make. Houston could definitely use a quarterback. Indianapolis, probably a good time to slip in a quarterback. Seattle can determine whether they're going to go free agency to pick up a veteran quarterback or to pick up a younger guy out of the draft. Detroit, what's the future with Jared Goff? Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers is another one. I know Sam Darnold finished the year off pretty strong, but I don't think Sam Darnold is a starting quarterback in the NFL. We know with the performance of Jalen Hurts this past season that the Eagles are going to stick with them. And, it was a win scenario for Jalen Hurts to solidify his position as a quarterback. We go down the list. The Jets could use a quarterback. Green Bay Packers have that question. If they're not going to stick with Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love fits in, or do they have to draft a quarterback? Washington Commanders is also another question. And then you get down to the bottom, part of this draft, and you realize that, all right, so if you maybe if you're the Saints, you could possibly find a quarterback. If you're the Falcons, you could possibly find a quarterback. But Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's a prime example. With Tom Brady retiring, who's going to fill in those shoes? And those are pretty big shoes to fill. Okay? So, and when you get down past, I say, the first 10 10, maybe 11, the first 10 picks, right? You get down the first 10 picks of the NFL draft, and if anything beyond that, you should probably consider selecting a free agency, going out of the free agency market. So we'll take a look at that today, and we'll kind of just discuss where the heads are at, this is coming. I think the first draft I'm selecting was from CBS Sports. I'll give you their take, and I'll let you know whether I agree or not. But the quarterback rankings, and I think I want to kick off with the quarterback rankings. And I'm going to take this from 32 to 1 back and forth, and I'm going to probably actually share my screen here after we come back from break. But the first thing I want to know from you guys is who do you guys have at least in the top 10? At least in the top 10. So what I had to do, out of all the quarterbacks that played, what I did is I went through every team and I listed the starting quarterbacks for each and every team last year. And then I listed some of the second string quarterbacks that we definitely saw in the season. For example, Teddy Bridgewater was one of them. Over there in Pittsburgh, you had Kenny Pickett, Mitchell Trubisky. So I included Trubisky on this list. Jacoby Brissett, which he had a decent, season last year before Deshaun Watson came back. Joe Flacco had his appearance last year. Cooper Rush had an amazing few weeks while Dak Prescott was out. Sam Darnold was noteworthy, even though Baker Mayfield started the season. Then we get into San Francisco, and Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy were also names to be mentioned because they elevated the 49ers in the season that they had, which I'm thankful for. So, I probably did, I had about 9 additional quarterbacks. So we have about 41 quarterbacks that I went through in order to include these rankings. Not all, I only did the first 32. So there's a few guys that don't make the list. And I kind of, how are you guys ranking your quarterbacks? I want to know, when I share you my list here, which I will be today, I want to know how you guys are ranking your quarterbacks. Is Tom Brady still on number one? That's one of my questions to ask you. Is Tom Brady still at number one in the draft for in the ranking picks? Where is Aaron Rodgers sit at in the draft pick in the quarterback rankings of 2022? And I'm looking at this draft, this rankings, and I'm very happy, especially with the top 10 guys. And notables, when I talked about Aaron Rodgers, talk about Tom Brady, regardless of the result of their season last year, they have to be considerate as still at the top, at least at the top elite. All right, because they have also paved ways. But what I did notice out of picking out this draft is that you are officially seeing that new era step in and really take control. I'm talking about guys like Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts made a very impressive jump compared to last year. His way in the upper end of my rankings. I also have Jimmy Garoppolo up there. I have Justin Herbert. You get down to Tua Tagovailoa, Dak Prescott. What becomes the issue is when you get down to the bottom half, trying to figure out exactly just where to place these quarterbacks. And I admit some of these quarterbacks don't really work, didn't really have a season to remember. But when you're, maybe I can somehow, I don't know, slide in as a quarterback or two, of course. But, listen, this list can kind of be rearranged a little bit. So I don't know. I'm going to take a look at it for our first break. But I kind of want to give you, I want to show you what my rankings are. See if you guys agree or disagree. I'll come back at by the time we get to the draft, and I'll reshare with you an updated version of where I think these quarterbacks belong, and we'll go from there. So this is just all comparison. So I want to know anyone special that is out. Where would you place them on the rankings, and see if I agree with you or not? Does Justin Fields deserve to be in the top 32? Does Sam Darnold deserve to be in the top 32? I mean, does question here is how high does Kenny Pickett deserve to be above Russell Wilson? So those are all big questions to ask. All right, so we have a busy show for you guys today. It's going to be a lot of opinionated questions and answers and topics here. I do want to talk a little bit about baseball. I want to get you guys, and I want to really share with you guys at some point in this program the actual rule changes for the Major League Baseball season, because that has also changed. Okay. There has been rules and stuff like that has transpired. So I want to get you over on that, and much more. All right, so let's take our first time out. When we come back, we'll get you involved into the quarterback rankings. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about when it comes down to quarterback rankings in today's program is the quarterback questions for 2023, something I did not get a chance to get through yesterday. So it's going to be a lot heavily on football. We'll talk a little bit about baseball and your local sports. Sit tight. We'll take you guys up until 2:00. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the Throw In with Justin. That's me. If you guys are watching us on YouTube, be sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. If you guys are over on Facebook, hit that like button, share it with your friends, point them over to us. And if you also are watching us on Twitter, we want to thank you. Hit that like button, share it with everyone else as well. Be sure, if you guys want to comment in, to head over to our YouTube page and leave comments down below. And if you're also downloading us, taking us on the road with you, wherever you go, we want to thank you dearly. All right, let's take our first break. We'll come on back and we'll talk some more sports. You guys are listening to the Throw In right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. 12:21 here on a Thursday afternoon. Welcome back to the Throw-In with Justin. That's me, right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. I want to give a big shout out to StreamYard Studios, the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. None of this is possible without StreamYard. StreamYard Studios is where you can create podcasts, videos, host virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. Check out the free version today at StreamYard.com. You know, StreamYard always seems to impress. And what I mean by that is that they always seem to be able to add new and cool features to help elevate your show just that much more. Something that I've learned this week that I've slowly been able to take advantage of since, I've been sick the last couple weeks was, you're able to show and display the names. But what you also are capable of doing, and I'm going to change this just so that you can kind of see. If you are watching us, you guys go to look at this. If you guys are listening to us, I guess my next minute and a half of explaining about StreamYard. But you see down there where I have my name displayed at as the host, Justin, where I could also show headlines, and underneath the name, it could show, all right, the seat, you could type in special additional information. So it's like if I could probably rearrange it, the host of the TNC, founder of TNC Sports Talk. And I think I'll probably do that tomorrow, and I'll like to show you guys about that. But that's something cool. So, when I did the interviews with the Lighton Studios about Love's Not Enough a few weeks back, we could actually, have their actual name and then their stage name but down below. And I think that's pretty incredible. So kudos to the StreamYard and everything that they've been able to do, whether it's the overlay, if it's the video clips, if it's the background, the banners. I always love using the banners. So thank you, StreamYard Studios, for providing a really well content and for being able to allow me to do what I do best and what I love to do, and talking to you guys about sports. Talking about sports, on this other hand, let me see if I could try to pop it up. I'm going to share my screen here. Get rid of a couple of things. We're going to share screen. There we go. Let me do that one. I think I got that one right on the board. Let me just double check with you guys and see where I'm at. All right, there we go. So I actually have here my quarterback rankings, and I don't know if you guys can see that, but these are it's on my Excel file. So if you guys are listening, like I said, I'm going to go through each and every one, and if you guys are watching, it gives you kind of some sort of view that you guys can look at and see here. And I'm, trying to see what's the best way to put my, maybe switch it over. All right, hold on, bear with me. There we go. Yeah, I don't like that. All right, so I'm gonna take myself off for a moment. And this is my quarterback rankings for 2022. As you guys can see, that there are a handful of names listed later or away from the quarterback rankings. And these are names that probably for quarterbacks that you saw this year, but for me, I didn't see anything to put them in the top 32. And that's probably because, obviously there was more than 32 quarterbacks. Now listen, this may very well change for me in the next month or two, because like I said, by the draft, what I want to do is come back with you guys with another quarterback rankings, and see if my thoughts change on anyone. So quarterbacks that probably qualified but didn't make the list for me were guys like Zach Wilson with the Jets, Deshaun Watson with the Browns, Mitchell Trubisky with the Steelers, David Mills, who was just, and no disrespect to David, but he was just awful with the Texans, Marcus Mariota, Andy Dalton, Sam Darnold, who I think got the unfair version of the back end of the season when they got rid of Baker Mayfield, and then Trey Lance, who we didn't see hardly anything of. Zach Wilson, he had a good run with the Jets. I just didn't qualify him for the top 32. Deshaun Watson, I'm sorry, but you served the suspension now. Unless you're able to take the team to the Super Bowl, then I don't think he would have ever made that list for me. Mitchell Trubisky didn't do bad enough, didn't do a terrible job with the Steelers, but I think 2022 season was around developing and introducing Kenny Pickett as the new face of the franchise. So with that being said, I have my top. No, it says 30. I have my top 32. I now it looks like I have the top 30. Yeah, pardon me. So I have my top 30 in this list, and I apologize if you can't quite see it all that well on my screen. But let me kind of work my way backwards here. Kicking things off is Justin Fields. Maybe I can let me enlarge this. There we go. How does that look for you guys on the screen? Oh, that looks much better. Let me enlarge it some more here. Bear with me. Don't normally share my screens outside of playing videos. But Justin Fields comes up at number 30 in my books. He kind of barely makes the list. I don't have the other two men. You know what? All right, here we go. Let's do this. Let's take a look at this non-list over here that didn't make it, and see who could possibly make it. And at the top of my list, I say Mitchell Trubisky is one of them. He's one of the guys that I liked coming in. He kind of handled himself. Trubisky, and the thing is, the reason why I like Trubisky was because he kind of handled himself pretty well, and he was one that really, he knew his role, he knew his place, and he didn't do a terrible job. We just didn't see a lot of. All right, so this is how we're gonna do. All right, so for me, all right, let me center that, and there you go, and you guys can see this list fine now. All right, so I got coming in at number 32. I'm gonna go ahead and put in Mitchell Trubisky. We didn't see him play a lot during the season, and we knew that his role was going to be with trying to prepare Kenny Pickett among the elite quarterbacks as a new face and franchise for the Steelers. Coming up as number 30, I was very disappointed in his performance, and that's going to be Matt Ryan. Having that chance over in Indianapolis, I thought that he was going to kind of be impressive. I really wish that we would have saw more out of him, but it was complete opposite. Listen, Matt Ryan, it comes in at number 31 for me. Coming in at number 30 is going to be Kyle Murray. He was a big talk last year, and he wanted this contract extension. He thought he's worth it. You know what? Let me tell you something, you guys. He hasn't earned anything in the NFL since he's arrived. He's had a good year, a solid year, but you know what? He's a troublemaker, in my opinion. I don't think he's there. He's a great quarterback, and so that's why I put him at number 30. Coming in at number 29, it's going to be Russell Wilson, man. I don't know if it has to do between Nathaniel Hackett or if it was Russell Wilson. But whatever happened, this was the blockbuster deal last offseason. And it turned out that Russell Wilson was just nowhere to be found. He couldn't get anything going. And you kind of wonder if if it's going to repeat next year. Very disappointed for what he's capable of doing, and we know he's capable of doing a lot. And I was very optimistic in seeing him at the top of the list. So I was just very disappointed in his performance last year. So he comes in at number 29. Coming in at number 28 here, I'm going to go ahead and throw in. Actually, I'm thinking about this list. trying to make sure I see the right people, and I'm going to do this in front of you guys just so that you guys know what I'm dealing with here and who I support. I'm going to throw in Zach Wilson. Number 28 didn't have a bad reputation. It wasn't a terrible quarterback. Um, you know, and I just think there's still a little bit more work that needs to be done in New York. Now, regardless if the Jets decide, hey, we're going to go up and go ahead and continue with Zach Wilson, or we're going to go with somebody else. I think that's a open conversation. But he made it my list. He's number 28. Um, Coming in at number 27. You know what? I am gonna throw in. I'm gonna throw in Ryan Tannehill. All right, reason I'm gonna throw in Ryan Tannehill at number 27 is to be honest. He just he's always been looked at not a starting quarterback. He's kind of had his good run with Tennessee, but this was also a chance to prove people wrong. A lot of people thought that Tennessee was going to be one of those. It was going to begin their rebuild mode. It was going to break down. We thought that they were going to be anywhere close. And they competed a lot, up until the final day, when they lost to the Jaguars. So I put Ryan Tannehill at number 27. Number 20 here has to be, for me, I'm going to throw in Justin Fields at number 27. With Chicago, actually, you know what? I'm going to check that. Coming in is going to be Matthew Stafford, from Super Bowl champion to practically finishing off the season in last place. He comes in at number 26. Los Angeles has their questions ready, laid out on the table. The Rams have the questions laid out on the table, and that's what's the status of the quarterback position at coming into next year. I know we liked what Matthew Stafford did. I know he was hurt majority of the year, but we expected a lot more out of him. And with Baker Mayfield not being an open free agency, which I think is probably one of the quarterbacks that gets overlooked right now, overall, Baker Mayfield comes in number 25, and the only reason why he comes in higher at 25 is because he was able to bounce back and have a solid few weeks coming into when he got traded over to the Rams. So Mayfield at number 25. Coming in at number 24, I'm throwing in Teddy Bridgewater. He knows, Teddy Bridgewater knows his role. He knew that he was a backup quarterback when he signed with the Miami Dolphins. He kind of had to have been thrown in there with Tua Tagovailoa, and so he held himself pretty well. But I think what really puts him down on this list for me is because he had to, I think I expected more from Teddy Bridgewater. And even though he stepped in and he helped the Dolphins maintain a solid record throughout majority of the season, I think we expected a little bit more. Coming in at number 23, I'm throwing Chicago's quarterback Justin Fields in there. Here's the thing: Justin Fields and the Bears, like I mentioned earlier, has something that they're going to have to deal with this offseason. The Bears are going to have to decide if they want to stick with Justin Fields. And I told you guys this at the beginning of the season with both Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. Now, coming into the season, I was a fan favorite when Justin Fields got drafted, although I didn't believe that it should have been with the Bears. Now, it settled. It did, happen how it happened. But the second year, NFL quarterbacks' sophomore years are the year that the quarterbacks have to prove and show them whether they're mainstream or, franchise talent quarterbacks or not. The problem is with Justin Fields, I don't think he's going to ever get above the ranking 15 or greater, just in the opinion because of how the Bears have carried themselves over the last decade, several years. And with that being said, until I see the Bears make it to the postseason, which is going to be hard to believe, then I don't see Justin Fields going above 20. Coming in at number 22 for me is going to be Taylor Heineke. I know the Washington Commanders came down. They had a good season for the most part throughout. Keeping it tight. In the NFC East. But Washington Commanders kind of fell off towards the end. Heineke had a decent season. I like to see more of him. I don't know if he's that everyday starter quarterback, but he's definitely up there. Coming in at number 21, I'm throwing in Mac Jones. A team who, Mac Jones helped the Patriots lead him, or he was led to the final weeks of the NFL season. They had that seventh seed wild card position heading into week 18, and stuff just went wrong. I think he's capable of learning. Bill Belichick, I think, can coach him, but I think that's what's going to have to happen. He's going to have to be coached in order to improve. Now, the question is that I know that there's been talks and rumors that New England's on a search for a free agent quarterback, and that can be a little scary if you're Mac Jones. So he's placed at number 21, and at number 20, I'm throwing in Kirk Cousins. This is one of the rare sites where I would debate and I would argue with you and say, hey, look, we have a playoff team, playoff quarterback who is sitting at number 20. And why is he in number 20? He brought the team to the playoffs. And yeah, Minnesota had a really good off season. I tell you, a really good season. They deserved being in the playoffs. But one thing that I tell you about this quarterback is that when we saw the NFC wildcard game between the Giants and the Vikings, he didn't show up. And I think that is a major, major downfall. So he's tops off at number 20. So I have the first 12. I'm going to keep on going when we come back. I want to finish off this list by the end of the hour. And let's have some fun with this. If you guys disagree, like I said, I want to hear what you guys have to say. So don't be afraid to comment down below. Let me know what you guys have to say. More of the throw-in continues here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
trying to make up your mind like you need more time. You've already spent most of mine. Even when your words fail, you try to keep it light. You realize I'm done right. You can be honest. I don't appreciate your lies. It's about damn time you get it right. I'm up all night. You keep pretending that you'll keep fighting. Say the word when it falls. I'm up all night. You just keep talking. Are you even silent?
12:43 here, taking you guys up until 2 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. Welcome back to the Throwing, everyone. Justin here, and we've been talking about my quarterback rankings. And so I kind of want to bring up the picture again here. I'll share the screen with you. Quarterback rankings. And, we provoked. We talked about the first people, or the first handful of people that made the list. And we are continuing that list. And so I kind of want to for anyone who kind of missed that first part, let's go ahead and go back and let me just share with you the list. There we go, full screen there. And so the people who we are in consideration of being in the top 32 but didn't make the list that we shared at the beginning was Deshaun Watson, David Mills, Marcus Mariota, Andy Dalton, Sam Darnold, Trey Lance. Trey Lance's explanation is simple. He got hurt really early on in the season. I didn't see enough of him to put him in the top 32. Sam Darnold made a fighting case when he replaced Baker Mayfield in the midst of the season. Just didn't do enough or anything impressive to me. Andy Dalton, Marcus Mariota didn't have enough. Houston Texans, David Mills, just awful. Deshaun Watson, I'm sorry, but when you get suspended for half the season, you just don't cut it for me. I don't care how well you play. So far, who we have is from 32 to 20 is Mitchell Trubisky from Pittsburgh, Matt Ryan from Indianapolis, Kyle Murray from Arizona, Russell Wilson from Denver, Zach Wilson from New York in the Jets, Ryan Tannehill out of Tennessee, Matthew Stafford with the Rams, Baker Mayfield with the Panthers, Teddy Bridgewater with Miami, Justin Fields with Chicago, Tyler Heineke with Washington, Mac Jones with the Patriots, and at 20 is Kirk Cousins with Minnesota. Coming in at number 19, I really grew on this guy after a very impressive start from the Cleveland Browns, and that would be the secondary backup and Jacoby Brissett. He really had, and he was really impressive through and through. He should be looked at as a quarterback that can potentially, good secondary quarterback. And what we've seen here, another guy who doesn't make the list, I got to look at this because one guy I forgot and I left out was Dallas Cowboys Cooper Rush. And maybe he swaps places with one of these guys. I don't quite know just yet. But Jacoby Brissett really makes the list for me, and he's a good backup quarterback that I think teams should look at if he doesn't stick with the Cleveland Browns. Coming in at number 18, I'm sitting with Jared Goff. Listen, Jared has had some, he's moved from Los Angeles to Detroit, and that's forced him to kind of not have to grow up, but kind of have to kind of get his shit together. And I think, and I believe that that Jared Goff is growing up to be a mature quarterback. Now, it's one of those unfortunate where I think maybe his good times and good careers are behind him, but we will get it, but he is growing. He comes at number 18 on this list because Detroit ended off the season on a promising note, and that's what I really liked about it. So we had Jared Goff coming in at number 18. Coming in at number 17, we're going to have Kenny Pickett. And, listen, he probably deserves to be higher on this list. Now, when he knew he actually had some really big shoes to fill. And although he had Mitchell Trubisky kind of behind him and working with him and all that stuff, he really had to step it up this year on his rookie year. He didn't even get a chance to get it to his sophomore year. Now, Pittsburgh was forgiving. They didn't ask him to go out and take them to the playoffs, even though they had high hopes to do it. But he had to transition very quickly. But I think the biggest problem, the biggest issue coming out of that story was that Kenny Pickett or any quarterback in that matter that had to play for the Steelers last year had some high shoes to fill because you're taking over a future Hall of Famer's Ben Roethlisberger's position. And I think that's very hard to do. Just like when Tom Brady left New England and now retiring this season, um, those shoes are hard to fill no matter how good you are. And I think it's a promising note that the Steelers, excuse me, finished off the season above 500, keeping that hope alive from Mike Tomlin. And I think it motivates the team and especially Kenny Pickett heading into next year. Coming in at number 16, it's going to be Derek Carr. Derek Carr is currently a free agent. I think he is one of those top quarterbacks that is going to, he's that domino effect. It will be Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers in that domino effect this year for the quarterback, just like we saw last year. Once we knew Tom Brady, was going to be back with the Buccaneers, once we knew that Aaron Rodgers was going to be back with the Packers, then all the other quarterbacks starting to fly, spill on the way. But the teams that need a quarterback that's willing to spend money, all right, Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr are going to be at the top of that list. And those teams that really are willing to spend money, all right, that probably ain't going to get a good quarterback at the draft this year, is going to have to rely, is going to come down to Derek Carr or Aaron Rodgers in this factor. Now, we know two things, right? Green Bay has Jordan Love, and the Raiders have two options. They could go with Aaron Rodgers, which I know that's been in rumors over the past several years, or they can go ahead and head into they could dive into a draft later on this year. Coming in at number 15, I'm throwing Tua Tagovailoa in there. I think a lot of people expect him to be higher on this list. Tremendous quarterback. I think it's the injuries and it's the concussion. I understand, and I'll give every player credit for wanting to play through an injury because a career, whether it doesn't matter what sport you're in, but a career is justified. But Tua Tagovailoa is going to have some major questions moving forward, especially with Miami. He comes in at number 15. Coming in at number 14, in my opinion, it's going to be Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, very impressive this year. Took the team to the divisional game, lost to the Eagles, have some improvement to work on. A lot better than what we really expected out of Daniel Jones and the New York Giants. Coming in at number 14 is going to be Dak Prescott for me, and I'm going to tell you this. Listen, man, I like Dak Prescott, but you could only you could only go to the playoffs so many times before you finally have to get over that hurdle. He's almost along the line of Josh Allen. I know that's hard to say, but Josh Allen and Dak Prescott have something in common. They could take the team to the postseason. They could go on and win their division. They could go on and dominate during the season. But when they get to the postseason and they get to a game that really counts, really counts, they can't complete it. Both quarterbacks have been to the postseason numerous of times, but have yet been able to get over to the promised land. That's opinion. Prescott comes in at number 13, especially with Cooper Rush. I kind of feel like they should share the number 13 spot because Cooper Rush didn't really get a clear idea of what he's capable of the entire season. He kind of filled in for Dak while he was hurt, and he held his ground pretty well. Coming in at number 12, and I think for this one here, this marker, and why he's coming in at number 12, and that's going to be Lamar Jackson. And that's because I think he's allowed the his contract and his status with the Ravens to get to the best of him. You could say what you want to say, but at the end of the day, the fact that you did not give your best effort out to come out and play in the wild card game, I think is a little upsetting in my opinion. Coming in at number 11 is going to be Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm going to say this about Jimmy Garoppolo. I like Jimmy Garoppolo. I appreciate. I really think he's a good quarterback, and I defended him heavily. But obviously, even I know that it's time to move on from San Francisco. I still think he should be a starting quarterback, but injuries prolong him. And that's going to be the remainder of his career. And that's going to be the determination of where he's going to be at. He, had that opportunity at week 3, took the team up until Thanksgiving, and then he turned it over to Brock Purdy. Coming in at number 9, and I never thought I've actually say this, or coming in at number 10, I'm sorry, is Geno Smith, a quarterback that I really thought the team was just going to be in the top, what will you say it? A team that I thought was going to be in the top, just barely fighting for 500, maybe had 5 wins or less, was going to be Seattle Seahawks. Geno Smith comes in and kind of gives a new perspective over in Seattle. And what they've actually done is now forced the hand in Seattle to determine what they are going to do. They had the opportunity to tank their season and go with the Bryce Young, go with a CJ Stroud in the draft, but they took him to the playoffs. And I think that just lit a little fire underneath Pete Carroll, saying that, hey, you can still do this even if you go with another quarterback. So I like Geno Smith. All right. This is where it starts coming down to where it really hurts. It does hurt because you always think that Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers is always at the top of the game. Where I'm going with Tom Brady here at number 9. Kind of falling apart. I know he went to the postseason this year, but man, he didn't. He didn't look like the Tom Brady. People didn't talk to him as the Tom Brady that he was. Something in the air this season for Tom Brady just didn't sit well with me. And it was almost as if he wasn't in the NFL, to believe it or not. So Tom Brady sits at number 9. And then you guys got to remember, this is only the rankings of 2022. All right, coming in next is going to be Justin Herbert in the Chargers, failing at the wild card division here. Justin Herbert still, I think it's the Chargers that have to change and figure out where they're going to go from here. So Justin Herbert comes in at number 8. I think he's an incredible quarterback. Coming in front of him at number 7 is going to be Aaron Rodgers. Listen, I believe that Aaron Rodgers, hopefully a new look will suit him. Coming in at number 6 is going to be Trevor Lawrence. Kind of a surprising team that made it to the postseason this year, beat the Chargers, win 1-1 against the Chiefs. And, hey, you go lose to the Super Bowl champions, then I think all else is forgiven. I think he still has some more room to work with, but I think he's also growing. So give me Trevor Lawrence at number 6. Josh Allen is coming in to me at number 4 because Jalen Hurts comes to me at number 5. I know, listen, we asked a lot to see out of Jalen Hurts, and we finally see it. I think this is a big improvement, but I think we need to see this a repeat from Jalen Hurts in order to kind of place him up there in the top 4. The reason why Josh Allen is in number 4 for me is because Josh Allen is just like Dak Prescott. Time and time and time again, he shows that he could get to that promised land, but then he can't capture the ultimate prize. Coming in at number 3 is San Francisco. I don't normally name rookie quarterbacks in the top 10s, but you have to be impressed by Brock Purdy. He carried his team for the remainder of the season. He also brought this team into the playoffs and into the NFC Championship game, which I think was very impressive. So I mean, in 2022, he's in my top 3. I would like to see him repeat themselves before I really give him my overall thought. Joe Burrow comes in at number 2, just the consistency and being able to repeat himself, and then Patrick Mahomes is at the top. So that is my list of 32 quarterbacks rankings, and the in that list. Like I said, in a couple weeks, probably in a month or so, we will go ahead and revise that there. All right, hour number 2 coming up here next, taking you guys up until 2 p.m. on a Thursday. You guys are listening to The Throw-In right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
About to leave, already packing, come with me, I'm not really asking, we'll get away to a place where we don't know, about to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions, we'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow, we can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's go, let's be free with me. Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche, we're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow, we can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free.
Gotta get it right now. Yeah, push your limits with you right now.
Hour number 2 is given to you by Spreaker.
Right now.
If you guys miss any segments or miss any episodes, you guys can take us on the road and take the Throw-In with you on the road by downloading us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and much more.
Gotta get it right now.
That's all thanks to Spreaker.com, the number 1 audio platform to show. And if you guys are also looking to display your own podcast and get monetized and have a larger amount of distributions, I highly recommend and suggest Spreaker to do all that for you. Spreaker.com for more information. Alrighty, hour number 2 here. And busy hour number 1. I hope everyone enjoyed that. Go back and listen to my quarterback rankings for February 16th of 2023. And that's just, like I said, as of today, that's where things are at. And I'm sure that we will be back. And as I said, I want to be back towards the draft and kind of give you another rankings of a quarterback, especially for teams last year. So we still got a lot more to talk about, but always beginning off on hour number 2, we kind of bring through and give you guys a little bit of local sports in Cincinnati. We had several games going on, and let me see if I could kind of I want to give a little bit of, let's see how this goes. There we go. Let's go ahead and give this little background music that you guys can enjoy too while we talk some local sports. It wasn't too bad of a sports week last night on a Wednesday, kicking things off in Cincinnati with the Cyclones. They hosted Kalamazoo Wings and took the victory over the Wings 2-1. Zach Andrusiak and Louis Capuuso both put up goals in the victory. Their next game is this Friday night against the Fort Wayne Comets. I believe it's a piggy bank giveaway. Comets coming in 23-15 and 4th in the ECHL Central. Puck drops at 7:30 p.m. ECHL Central standings as of right now. Indy Fields are leading the division 31-15 and 2, while Cincinnati and Toledo picked up a victory last night, moving them both to 28 wins. Indy Fuel coming up, and we're going to be facing them here coming up in about a week, about 10 days. It's going to be a big matchup. But Indy Fuel will begin a 2-game series against the Kalamazoo Wings on Friday. NCAA basketball, the men's basketball for the Bearcats, as they unfortunately lost their game last night on the road in East Carolina against the Pirates, 75-71. They moved to 17-10 on the season, 8-6 on conference, and 3-5 on the road. East Carolina came back from a 16-point deficit in the last 10 minutes of the game. Wes Miller said, it was, and I quote, "It was a difficult night. We did not play well in the second half, and especially after good plays. We did not play the next play, and we were not focused. We didn't finish the game even when we had opportunities with the lead late in the game, so you're frustrated on every possible level. I'm disappointed," end quote. They'll get a chance to make that up as they continue their road trip against Central Florida and the Knights, playing at high noon on Sunday. The Central Florida are 15-9 on the season, 6-6 in the division. Cincinnati leads an all-time series 19-3, including 3 straight, and 8-3 in Greenville. Cincinnati is also 16-4 when leading at half. David DeJulius extends his nation-leading streak to a 5+ assists on 12 games. Jeremiah Davenport becomes a 56th member of the UC's 1,000-point club, joining Davis DeJulius, who earned it in the February 4th win over UCF. Men's basketball, like I mentioned yesterday, and I'm just going to repeat it, their season begins tomorrow, February 17th at Georgia State against the Panthers. First pitch for that game is at 3 p.m. Xavier Musketeers men's basketball, they picked up a loss 69-68 in a very, very big game against Marquette Golden Eagles. They moved to 9-7 on the year, 11-4 in conference. They moved to 5-4 on the road. Musketeers hit 4 Musketeer players hit 4 double figures in the back in a back and forth battle late last night. Sully Bohm led all 4 scorers with 24 points. 10 to 15 shooting from the floor, making 4 for 8 from the beyond the arc. Colby Jones added 13 points, shooting 5 for 8 from the floor. Jones also led with 8 rebounds and 5 assists. Jerome Hunter was involved, had 10 points on the game last night, 3 for 5 from the floor and 4 for 4 from the free throw line. Xavier shot over 53 points a percent from the floor while holding Marquette to a 38% shooting percent, but the Golden Knights finished with a 36-32 advantage on the boards, including 15 for 4 advantage on the offensive glass. Their next game is this Saturday at home, taking on DePaul Blue Dragons. Tip-off is at 4 p.m. The Blue Dragons will be coming into the game 9-17, 3-12 in conference, on the road 2-9, looking to get back on that road trip as well. Men's baseball also kicks off against Arizona Ducks tomorrow. First pitch is at 7 p.m. Kentucky Wildcats men's basketball, they picked up a victory over the Mississippi State Bulldogs, win 71-68. They moved to 17-9 overall, 5-5 excuse me, 5-5 in the conference. The game lived up to the height, a group of effort from the entire team, not just one of the Cats, that led them to the victory. The next game will be also Saturday, taking on Tennessee Volunteers. Tip-offs at 1 p.m. The Volunteers coming into the game 20-6, 9-4 in the conference, 4-3 on the road. Men's baseball is also first game against Elon Phoenix, February 17th at 4 p.m. We're also going to take a little bit into the NCAA bracket tournament, what to watch out for. As I mentioned earlier today, Xavier Musketeers currently sit number 4 seed in the Midwest bracket in Kansas. That will be played in Kansas City. First for Kentucky, who picked up a must-need win, are sitting on the bubble in the first 4 out category, trying to keep their hopes alive. So we'll be following that and keeping you guys updated while that all occurs. That is your local sports in Cincinnati. Alrighty, so a couple other things I wanted to kind of come out and share with you guys here. And let me just kind of get to everything that I want to get to. I think I have. Let me see here. Give me a second. There we go. I'm going to need this popped up. All right. So MLB has changed some rules for 2023, and we are excited to go ahead and share some of them. They changed some of their rules here. And I want to kind of explain to you some of the rule changes that they have by a video. So let me pop up the video here. Let me share my screen. So let me read to you them first before I go ahead and share them. MLB rule changes for 2023 season. Pitcher timer is set to 15 seconds between pitches when bases are empty, and then 20 seconds with runners on. Defensive shift restrictions. 2 infielders position on each side of second base. Infielders must have both feet within outer boundaries of infield. Infielders may not switch sides unless there are substitutions. Bigger bases has also been added. First, second, and third base increase from 15 inches to 18 inches square feet. Now, I'm going to also show you the picture. We'll go back and forth. Now, I want to share you the actual video here that was presented. And the reason why I want to do that is because I think this was actually given a better opportunity. So we're going to be playing this video. Basically, it's the demo. So what was it? I think it was Joe Martinez, who was a part of this, shared a demo to yesterday or the other day on the field that gave everyone the experience of what's going to happen. So what I'm going to do here, and it's going to load here, just playing the getting the video loaded up. I'm not going to play the video because I don't want to get copyrighted. Not looking to do this, but I really think, hey, baseball season's here. It's very important to understand these rules. And I think, I was listening to it, and I really think that Joe Martinez did a exquisite job. You guys could check this out on the Cincinnati's website, as well as you could check this out on MLB.com. So let me go ahead and share with you the rule changes. Will come back and kind of touch base with you.
In center field, we're trying to get them close enough where they're easy to see and also kind of at a good height so they can't be blocked. The umpire is going to be behind the plate, trying to focus in, want to make sure they can see the timer, no matter if there's a right-handed or left-handed batter. There's also 2 timers behind the plate. They're going to be programmed so when the clock expires, these are going to buzz, right? So the umpires are going to be able to wear most likely kind of on the wrist, maybe on the forearm, ankle, like wherever's best for them and how they like to position it. They can put all their focus on that pitch and rely on this to buzz and remind them when the clock expires. These Riedel packs, right? They used these same things last year for in-stadium announcements, right? Replay announcements. They're going to use them again for that, right? The umpires will be able to clip this microphone somewhere near their mouth, right? They don't have to have the earpiece in all the time. They can push this button, which will probably be on the belt, and say, hey, restart the clock, or, set it to 30 or whatever it might be to make sure that they stay in sync with the clock operator. So one of the ideas is the batter has to be in the box and ready to give the pitcher enough time to get a sign and deliver a pitch, right, without violating the timer. So the batter's going to have to be in the box and alert to the pitcher with at least 8 seconds remaining. And when we say in the box, is pretty easy, right? Full feet in the box, right? And the batter's going to have to have his eyes up on the pitcher. So with 8 seconds or less, right, he can't have his head down, digging around. Can't have his hand up going time. The umpire, those would be violations. However, he doesn't need to be, that on his shoulder, right? So it's perfectly acceptable. Be in there, eyes up, no problem. That would satisfy alert to the pitcher, right? He can kind of be doing whatever he wants. It's just the idea is just so that if the pitcher starts pitching, right, can quickly kind of get in that stance and get ready to hit. So if there's a batter here, right, it's counting down. You kind of have plenty of time to get in here and be ready, right? Eyes up, no problem. There's requirements for when the clock stops for the pitcher is when he begins his motion to deliver the pitch. It's a little different from the windup and the stretch. So from the windup, it's really that first movement on what we used to, I don't know if they still do, call like a rocker step, right? Which is usually back or to the side for most pitchers. So getting a sign, clock is going to continue to run. As soon as you start taking that first step back or that step to the side, first thing you'll notice, right, are the timers. In making that movement, clock shuts off. So all you have to do is start that before the clock hits 0, no violation. However, for our version here, right, it's not going to stop until you lift that 3 legs to deliver the pitch. So come set, clock is going to continue to run. It's not going to stop until you pick that foot up, as Tyler just did, to make your pitch to the plate. So the bigger base, right, really the only difference is that instead of it being 15 inches on each side, it's 18 inches on each side. From the tip of home plate to the back of the base is 90 feet. So that's not changing, right? It's still going to be 90-foot bases. There's no change there. The only difference is the front of the base is going to be 3 inches closer to home plate. At second base, the baselines actually meet right in the middle of the base, right? So you're going to actually cut the distance between first base and second base by 4.5 inches, right? So 3 inches here, right there, and then 1.5 inches at second base, and similarly between second and third is going to be shortened by 4.5 inches. However, the way that the baselines are measured and where they actually are on the bag is the same. There's no change there at all. Hopefully it does encourage a little bit more aggressiveness on the base paths, and maybe more importantly, in the minor leagues we did see a pretty significant decrease in like base-related injuries. The safer we can make the game, the more we can keep our best players on the field, the better. So the first one we talked about, right, a depth restriction. So infielders need to have both feet in front of this outer boundary of the infielder, the cut here, right? And that's when the pitcher starts his motion. So there's no more of the pitcher starts his motion and you're walking into here, right? You have to start within that outer boundary. There has to be 2 infielders on each side of second base. And when we say on each side of second base, we mean clear of the entire bag, right? Not just some imaginary line that runs through the middle. An infielder could be positioned here-ish. However, I don't think you're going to get too close, right? Because you don't want to potentially, trigger a violation. We're also going to have umpires keep an eye on any kind of like circumvention attempts, right? Which the two kind of like most common things we heard were infielders kind of sprinting to gain depth or like positioning to the pull side right upon release. Our experience from the minor league told it all. You're going to see kind of guys just playing in a more traditional setup.
Alrighty. So that was Joe Martinez kind of explaining to you what the new rules for 2023 and the season is going to be. And, a couple of things that are interesting, we see here on my screen that the pitch timer, guys kind of want to touch base with that. The way when they kicked off that video, and like I said, you go see that video on the Cincinnati Reds website or Major League Baseball website. But what you've seen here is you've seen there are now 2 pitch clocks that will be established. I want to say, especially at the major league level, that regardless the umpire has a clear vision from both sides, whether it's a right-handed batter or if it's a left-handed batter, which is a great thing. So there's no way that the batter was in the way or the pitcher was in the way. No, it doesn't matter. And then there's also 2 pitch. There's 2 pitch. I want to say not pitch clocks, but 2 pitch clocks on both sides of the umpire on the backboard, which I think is great also. And then he was basically saying that the clock starts as soon as he gets to the rubber, and basically the catcher cannot give out the the signal until afterwards, which I think is also going to help the pitchers, because last year what we saw was those electronical things, with the catcher was wearing an electronical wristband and communicating to the players and the pitcher. And I think we'll see more of that. And then on top of that, the umpires, instead of having to always pay attention to the clock, the home plate umpire will get like a little buzzer that they could wear either on their wristband, wherever they feel comfortable, that they can feel it. And when it will basically vibrate, and that will be an indication saying that, hey, the timers went off, it's marked foul. I think this spring we're going to see a lot of that being put into place. And I think the only way to make this possible is to have the umpires at the major league level really emphasize the rule. And the way that you have to start emphasizing that rule is emphasizing it in spring training. You rather get all of that disturbance and all that problem out of the way now compared to, opening day and the first few weeks. You don't want to have that controversy, because I can see guys like Max Scherzer and, you have Justin Verlander, a lot of guys that do take their time. And so, the clock does not stop until they start going into their motion or lifting that leg. Shifts limited. Practically, I think it's very understanding. Both has to have 2 players on each side, and they have to be inside the grass by the time the pitcher starts their motion to the plate. The bases being larger, as you see also displayed, I think it obviously, is still the 90-degree, and then from the back end goes to the center. So I think that's also incredible. It's going to be interesting to see how these rules affect and really take hold of this 2023 season. And the whole idea is, once again, is creating a faster gameplay, creating a safer environment for the ball players, as well as the aggressiveness, because, we want to see, we haven't seen a whole lot of players, take advantage like they did. I won't say it's been like a decade since we really seen aggressive base running, as well as, trying to eliminate the shifts and not make it an easier out. So a lot of changes to come this year. All right, when we come back, I still want to talk to you guys about the quarterback questions for 2023. There's a handful of players that I think are at the top of that list, and a lot of teams that have to have some concern. So we'll talk more about that. This still to come. Take you guys up until 2 o'clock on a Thursday here on a TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Inside your bedroom, we stopped counting the days last you, but I don't know how. Cause every time I bump right into you, I get all tongue tied. Want you to know me, but I'm way too shy.
Alrighty,
I can't just
125
go
here
around admitting that it's
on
you
the
I
throw in
like.
here. I want to give a big shout
I
out
wish that
to
I
Epidemic
had
Sounds.
guts enough to flirt a little,
Proud
but I'm too
to be using the
scared
music
of
given
fail.
by Epidemic Sound.
I wish that
Discover your
I
world-class
could
artists, composers, and
external
bands.
the
Find the
voices
perfect
I
soundtrack and
make,
give your
the
social
voice
media
that
accounts the music they
always
deserve.
fails.
Epidemic Sound is a royalty-free
Don't
music link.
waste your
For more
time,
information, check
'cause you're
out
running around. Give
epidemicsound.com.
it a go and just a run. Only takes a try, yeah. Even if
Alrighty,
you touch
take you
your
guys
nose,
up until
then
2
I
o'clock.
need to know. So give it a go, give it a go.
MLB baseball is going to be interesting. One thing that I did hear that I have not really seen much of, but I also heard about a new rule that I don't know how much is going to be taking place. We don't see a whole lot of this, but it's about position players being able to pitch. And there was a kind of a rule on that, and about how, you have to be leading or down by so many runs in the late innings. And I'm trying, kind of eager to see if that is real, not. I'm gonna have to do some homework a little later on, and find all that stuff out. Going to, um, but it's been a big talk about football. Want to continue on football, and it's really about the quarterbacks. I think the quarterbacks are the ones that we are in question of. And what I mean by that is that we went through the quarterback rankings, but there's a lot of teams that have their own quarterback problems and concerns heading into this offseason. We sat there yesterday, we talked about the AFC North, and kind of in a small recap of, hey, with the Ravens, you got Lamar Jackson and that contract deal. With the Bengals, you still got to work on maybe helping improving your offensive linemen. Browns, you get to see the first year with Deshaun Watson, and now improve the team around Kenny Pickett for the Steelers. Well, in the NFL, there's a lot of quarterbacks. Lions. Um, you know, Jared Goff kind of finished off the year pretty on a solid note. I think that the Lions think that they're on the right direction now moving forward, and they really, hey, whenever you can knock out, especially a long division rivalry that, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers have always been dominating you guys, then I think that's a bonus. So I think it's time to put full sell, put the pedal down to the metal there. How will the Buccaneers move on from Tom Brady? They just last year, as I mentioned, they just they didn't seem to be that spark team that Tom Brady for the first year didn't seem to be the center of attention when it came down to being this, goat of a quarterback. And, he retired, and hopefully we stay that way. And listen, I'm not really going to buy much into it until we see a couple years without him. But, hey, he could always come back next year with a different team. He's also talked about that, how he kind of maybe wants to play on the West Coast. He's also talked about, maybe take a year off, and then, hey, next year he decides that he wants to come back. So I'm not holding too much accountable to that. But there's a couple of teams I really want to address right now. I think one of the first team that I think throws out, is the big question is San Francisco, as well as Brock Purdy played, um, for the remainder of the season, taking them to the postseason, taking them to the NFC Championship. At the beginning of the season, the 49ers said, hey, Trey Lance, you're our guy. We are going to believe in you. We're going to give you the reins. And then Jimmy Garoppolo, as a free agent, last second notice, gets signed as a backup quarterback to Trey Lance. Trey Lance goes out within like less than a month of the season. Jimmy Garoppolo, and I was like, this is a great time for Jimmy Garoppolo to rise and, show everybody what he's capable of and prove the 49ers wrong. He did that up until Thanksgiving. Then Brock Purdy had to kind of finish the way down. And what we saw in Brock Purdy, I mean, listen, I know every quarterback has their ups and downs, but what we saw in Brock Purdy, you guys, I mean, it can't be denied. He is the backup. He's as a backup, I'm confident of having, he kind of reminds me of the Jimmy Garoppolo when Jimmy was the backup to Tom Brady. He's also reminds me as Jordan Love as the backup to Aaron Rodgers. So as a backup, I feel very confident in Brock Purdy. Now San Francisco has already said that, hey, we're going to go ahead and put our eyes still on Trey Lance as our starting quarterback. Now, here's the thing. San Francisco should be moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo should be a free agent. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't be a starting quarterback. I think he's good to be a starting quarterback. But the concern is with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Is that he's injury, he's injury infested. Okay. And I don't know what team is worth the investment to want to buy a quarterback that has a high risk of getting hurt during the year. But that is one of the biggest questions. I mean, you do run into saying, all right, Trey Lance, you come back and you get hurt again, and you're not the quarterback that you once was, or that we once thought you was. We throw Brock Purdy in there. Brock Purdy got hurt too. So San Francisco, and I feel bad for San Francisco because they're one of the teams that really can get up and probably should, we should have saw Kansas City. But we should have saw Kansas City and San Francisco at the postseason, in the Super Bowl, but we didn't. Another team that I think has a really big choice, and this is going to look back to the mock draft that we'll share with you here in a little bit at the back end of our last hour, is the Chicago Bears. They, Houston Texans handed them the golden ticket. Now, the only good thing that comes out of it is that, whoever Houston's going to get at the draft, the money wise, the contract that you give the number 1 pick to the number 2 pick is a lot less. And I think that's the only good thing. But, Chicago has the question now in the air. They have Justin Fields. And how well do they believe in Justin Fields? And do they believe in the future with Justin Fields? Or do you sit there and say, hey, listen, there's not many quarterbacks on this market. Let's go ahead and draft a quarterback. We got the number 1 pick. But, I mean, like I mentioned, we talked about the quarterbacks at the beginning of the show. Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. Beyond those 4, maybe Hooker from Tennessee. But beyond that, there's really nothing much that is really worth talking about. So the question is what does the Bears do? Do they invest into Justin Fields, or do they try another quarterback? Or, the third option is picking up, one up, and we're going to get into the mock draft, and the mock draft shows that they're not going for a quarterback in this round, which I think there's time to question. So that's one of the questions. Another one that may want to consider a quarterback option would, in the early rounds, and I don't see them in the mock draft that we'll show you. Excuse me. And a matter of fact, I don't see them having a pick at all. No, and they won't have a pick because they gave it to Seattle. And they're going to probably be screwed, is Denver Broncos. Now, I don't know the scenario. I don't know if it's, Nathaniel Hackett or if it's Russell Wilson. There's a new head coach in the field, and that's Sean Payton. And I kind of feel almost a sense of relief saying, all right, maybe last season was a new team, elevated altitude, different atmosphere, not the greatest head coach in Nathaniel Hackett. Let's admit that. So maybe it wasn't Russell Wilson. You go add on Sean Payton, who knows what he's doing. He's led Tom Brady, Drew Brees down to the promised land before. And then maybe you can have a reinvivement from both of these players, for both the head coach and the quarterback. But I'm a little worried that there is more to the story than what meets the eye. And my worry is more towards um, Russell Wilson, kind of beyond of his prime almost. So that's going to be another question I think Denver should ask. And I think that quarterback ratings is going to be more in the free agent side to be answered with. We want to see how this plan works, and that's going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. The future of the Raiders will be looked without Derek Carr. Derek Carr joins the free agency. We will still wait to see what team he selects to go to. While Las Vegas is moving on, obviously there's been rumors that the eyes of, I've always said this, Aaron Rodgers, those in the conversation mix. I don't know. But then, hey, there is where you're landed at in the draft, which is number 7. Could you pick up a quarterback? Yes. And see which quarterback you would actually obviously ended up with. Thing is with Derek Carr, I think right now as a free agent, we know that he's a good quarterback, but now it's time with whatever team he decides to sign with, he's going to have to step up to that level. The Rams have a conversation what to do, whether they stick with Matthew Stafford or they want to go ahead and try to re-sign Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield didn't seem too bad out there in the back end of the season with the Rams. So that's going to be a question for the Rams. Seattle, Geno Smith did a lot more than what they expected him to do. Maybe ruin some future plans for the Seahawks. Do they go with the quarterback or do they stick with Geno Smith? The Packers, obviously, they're going to move up to Jordan Love as well. And then Baltimore Ravens, they have to decide. I think that this year is going to be the most important year when it comes down to the contract signing between Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, because if it doesn't happen by the beginning of the season, I think it's going to be gone for none. And I really think, listen, you got a team who wants to pay him, then pay him, man. If not, then it's time to move on. All right, let's take our last break. Let's come back and give you our mock draft setup and finish off the program. Thank you guys for tuning into The Throne with Justin. That's me. You guys are listening to this program on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
I woke up, she was looking at me. She told me I've been cheating.
Alrighty,
on
142, last segment of the throw-in here, given to you. I want to give our good friends a shout out over there at Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. In their last episode, see if I can pull it up or somehow down. The last episode was about a day ago. It was an interview with Jack Stinger, a soldier and a wrestler in all in one. And, you know, they're doing this whole Why We Are Fans stuff and great stuff. And I just want to give them a big shout out. All right. They break down news and highlights of professional wrestling. Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast is a weekly wrestling podcast founded on YouTube and on all audio streaming platforms. You know, Steve Barber over there was the one who gave me the idea to go jump to Spreaker to get our show on the road on audio platforms and start getting monetized and this and that, and great stuff that they do. We elaborate all the time. But I was just texting him a couple of days ago about the question of why are we putting Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar in a match weeks before WrestleMania? Isn't that a WrestleMania match? And why are we doing it, risking getting them hurt, and you know what would have to go down, and blah blah blah. But you know, listen, go check them out. They also, you know, it's interesting. I just talked about this the other day with them also, is that they gave out, you know, last year, around this time last year, I was working on a website called Place It, where it was doing our intro video for us. That's where we get it from. And Place It, I created a kind of like an intro for Armchair Booking because they didn't really have nothing. They're just starting off on YouTube, and they didn't really have no entrance getting into, you know, their videos. So they kicked things off. And he sent it over to me. He was like, "Here, take a look at this. Let me know what you think." And I'm like, "Man, I love it. I'm actually jealous. I actually kind of want Steve to kind of create me one, hopefully one day." And kind of, you know, sometimes, you know, I'm always about changing, and I'm like, all right, let me stick to what I have now, and maybe and hopefully at some point in the next few months, as I progress and continue down this road, maybe he'll go ahead and create a new kind of entrance for me. So we'll look into that. I want to apologize ahead of, you know, already the last couple of breaks, on my music, because I usually have everything on the music, and it has a countdown over here under the video clips on StreamYard. But with the internet connection, with the weather happening outside right now, where it's kind of been thunderstorming here and there, raining everywhere, I've hadn't had many, the last couple of breaks I've had kind of stops, like doesn't stop, but the music stops about a minute into it or so. And then so I have to go to my live, and that's about 15 seconds off. So I'm not timing the music just right from when the commercial ends to when the music starts. So I want to apologize for anyone who's watching us, the misdirection that I'm sending you guys in. But all right. What I want to do, though, to finish off our show here is talk to you guys about this bracket. And let me cancel. See what I have up here. All right, so let me do that. Let's share screen. There we go. I want to kind of give you guys the mock draft that has been presented, and I want to just review it with you guys, as this mock draft is mainly about the first round, and this is what these teams could possibly be drafting in the first rounds. And I mentioned to you guys on this list that you know, someone like, you know, the quarterback list isn't that long. Okay. Right now, I got 10 quarterbacks in mind in this draft. That's Bryce Young from Alabama, CJ Stroud from Ohio State, Will Levis with Kentucky, Anthony Richardson with Florida, Hendon Hooker with Tennessee, Tanner McKee with Stanford, Aiden O'Connell with Purdue, Jaron Hall with BYU, Cameron Ward with Washington State, and Stetson Bennett with Georgia. So those are my 10. But honestly, in all respect, about 4, maybe 5 of those are key favorites that's going to be entering in high on this draft. Now, when you go over to the actual draft, and I'll zoom up to it, you got to remember that there are a handful of teams, such as the Broncos, who sold their pick to the Seahawks, Rams sold to the Lions, Saints traded out to the Eagles, Browns with the Texans, and so forth. And Miami Dolphins traded out, forfeited their pick in number 21. I have your the first round pick going your way. Okay, so coming in at number 1, and this is just like I said, this was a mock draft already presented, and I'm just going to from CBS Sports, and I just want to share with you what they have in place and whether or not I agree with them. So this may be a fast process. And I mentioned, it's kind of the key of our today's show was quarterbacks, right? Quarterback issues with Houston. David Mills obviously looking for a quarterback. The Colts will be an opportunity to look for a quarterback. Maybe the Falcons and the Panthers could be in hunt of a quarterback. Patriots maybe, but there's not a big class list for quarterbacks this year. So kicking things off here, all right, coming in from Chicago, if they stick with the number 1 pick, they're going for it. Will Anderson Jr., an edge from Alabama. And you know what? And I'm going through, and I was looking at this list a little bit yesterday, and I was like, I'm satisfied. This actually be a good pick. Stick with Justin Fields and pick up Will Anderson Jr., an edge. Now, coming up second, another Alabama person. And I think and when you look at this, it starts to make sense to you, saying like, Houston, you really need, solidify this, especially if Chicago doesn't go for a quarterback, is that you got to get Bryce Young. You got to get a quarterback that you can seal your future on, make a franchise as, and start rebuilding. And I think that Bryce Young fits that bill. So we're looking at Bryce Young coming at number 2 with Houston. Coming out at number 3 with Tyree Wilson with an edge for Arizona Cardinals, out of Texas Tech. Indianapolis Colts also go with a quarterback. That's going to be C.J. Stroud from Ohio State. Now, my thing is I like the guys from Bryce Young to C.J. Stroud to Will Levis. I even like Hendon Hooker and Anthony Richardson. Those are my top 5 favorite quarterbacks right now that I really enjoy. And I could technically see this draft happening as they come in. Bryce Young going to Houston, C.J. Stroud going to Indianapolis. My thing is that I went, just like when Trevor Lawrence went to Jacksonville, I was like, whatever. I wasn't really a big fan of him at the time. Now I'm starting, he's starting to rub off some good vibes for me. But then when Justin Fields went to Chicago, and I'm like, no, what are we doing here? Right? I like Justin Fields. I enjoy Justin Fields. He shouldn't have went to Chicago. How come you not, maybe you should have went. This was about the same time Joe Burrow was picked up with Cincinnati. How come you didn't go with Joe Burrow? Excuse me. Then we come down. We start answering questions. You think about the Detroit Lions sticking with maybe Jared Goff, but they really want to focus themselves into Miles Murphy out of Clemson. But then the Raiders, right, who just got done releasing Derek Carr. We talked about. We keep on talking about a specific trade or a specific free agent signing, and a lot of the names, especially that one particular name that runs back in circles with Aaron Rodgers. But then you realize, hey, there's Will Levis out there on the table, a quarterback out of Kentucky. And when I was following the Wildcats, I was getting into Will Levis. He was standing out. Because then from there, quarterbacks kind of go downhill. Anthony Richardson is mock draft, will be picked up at the number 9 spot from Carolina out of Florida. But then you start looking at, all right, so what is Kansas City doing? What is Philadelphia doing? Well, Philadelphia actually gets 2 spots this year. And it's like, all right, well, you have to benefit from that. with picking up the number 10 spot. They could be going after Jordan Addison, a wide receiver from USC, and then look going after Jamari Gibbs, a running back out of Alabama. Not Jamari, Cam Smith. I'm sorry, from cornerback out of South Carolina. And then we look at the list because we start looking at the mock drafts. These are what experts believe that these teams will play, will get drafted at, and they're not always true, but you can definitely see certain players fitting with certain teams. But then we go down to some of the favorite teams, and I think one of the things I like to go down is let's find one of our divisions. And the first thing that comes up is the Pittsburgh Steelers, because don't forget Cleveland Brown was going to be at number 12, but they traded with Houston for the whole Deshaun Watson thing. Now, projectively, Peter Skoronowski, an offensive tackle from Northwestern, is projected to be with the Texans in that second round. And see, you look at this list, and I'm like, Texans, you got an opportunity. You got not one, but 2 picks. You can't really mess this up, and you're already down at the bottom of the totem pole here. But we look at this. Pittsburgh Steelers, Brian Branch, a safety out of Alabama. This is a projector style. And you kind of could tell where these teams need to work on in their offensive strategy, off-season strategy from this draft. And that's something I really sat back and I realized. I was like, okay, if between now and the draft, we really don't know or have an idea where we can speculate all we want. We can go off of these teams and say, when we're ready, where they need help at. Like I can sit here and say, that Cleveland needs help at X, Y, and Z, that the Bengals need help at with the offensive line, but we really don't know. And what we think they need help at, and I can't really tell you or confirm with you what they need or don't need because I'm not in that office. I didn't do scouting. I didn't go work in the office for a team. I never played in the NFL, nonetheless college football, only played high school football, and that's not enough experience. So I'm telling you based off of what I know. And, is that I could predict where these teams need help at, but we really don't know any of that until the draft comes. Now we will see between then and now free agents being signed, trades being dealt, and that's all great. That's all exciting. But we realistically don't know what these teams are going after in the offseason and where they're addressing their issues until the draft comes, to be honest. So I went down the list and I went with the Baltimore Ravens. Okay. Went with the Baltimore Ravens and they decided that, hey, they want to maybe go for a running back, Benjamin Robinson. I'm like, okay. So maybe they want to work on their offensive skills because I know last year when we were playing the Ravens twice, right? One at the end of the season, one at the wild card. What was one of their big problems? Was one, establishing the run game, and 2, it was their pass protection. They couldn't complete passes, and it wasn't Josh Johnson behind, throwing the ball. He was excellent. He was doing what I think a backup quarterback did. It was the receivers who were replacing the injuries that they had. So I'm like, all right, so I think it kind of makes sense. I think it makes sense in my mind that Baltimore is going to work on their running back. I think it makes sense to me that Pittsburgh is going to work on their safety. All right. And then it makes sense to me. I'm like, all right, well, if I'm thinking to myself and I'm just predicting here where the Bengals need work on, they could always use more work there on the offensive line. They went and they did their due diligence last season. They picked up a couple great veterans that help this team. An at-fault sense of injuries kind of unraveled tremendously. And you have a really good defense that you could always add to free agency. You have a decent wide receivers that I think with Joe Mixon, you got TJ, Higgins, Higgins, sorry. And then you got, Jamar Chase got Boyd. I think you keep those bands together. You could always add a couple of additional players. I'd say throw in another, maybe in the round 2 or 3 slot, slide in another receiver there. But offensive line. And until you guys can establish an offensive line that, one, stays healthy, and two, you establish an offensive line that can actually protect Joe Burrow, establish that run game, get him in that pocket so he doesn't have to move outside to be able to throw the ball, then I'm thinking, all right, great guy. So according to the mock draft that I have, Broderick Jones, offensive tackle from Georgia, is a guy that is on the list. So, as I just kind of exclaim here, I think that it is important that we sit here and we, pay attention to these things, because it's these things that, hey, listen, I know it's weeks or months away, right? But that is going to come and go really fast. And I'm going to say that because, tomorrow we have Elimination Chamber in WWE. You have next week, beginning of next week, you have the, next week you have the combines, which is going to be a real thing. And it's just like, all right, so I looked at the mock draft and I was like, I know, I pay attention to the quarterback spot, and it makes ideal sense of the quarterbacks, according to the mock draft, that fit with the team that was probably going to elect them. And it kind of gets me a little excited to what the actual draft is going to be. And I'll tell you this, I've never been excited about the NFL draft in my life. I'll tell you that. So it's pretty exciting. I'm excited. I'm stoked to see it. So, alrighty. Well, we went ahead and did it. We made it through another day and another episode of The Throw-In. I will be uploading this to audio platform shortly. We will be back tomorrow. Took a break from wrestling, talk about football, a little bit about baseball. But come back tomorrow, wrap up a week, get you guys ready for the weekend in the sports, Elimination Chamber, the golf, the Genesis International, Tiger Woods is playing. So if you guys have something to watch, you guys, it's supposed to be his last year. So I think if you're going to watch Tiger Woods at any means necessary, watch him every chance he gets. I'm going to watch him this weekend as well. So get a chance to watch him and tune us back in tomorrow. Thank you guys for tuning in to The Throw-In right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.